एकम् अक्षरम् हृदि निरन्तरम् भासते स्वयं लिख्यते कथम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहम् अहम् इति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वम् चिन्वता भजता पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम् देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तथभावशुक्तिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भावतः कोऽहं भावयुतः कुतो वरधिया दृष्टात्मनिष्ठात्मना सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं Namo Ramana. In this, our Thursday Satsang from Ramana Maharshi Center for Learning, it has been our practice to read from the work Guru Vachaka Kovai, 2 verses selected for us. Each verse reading will be followed by a short meditation on its meaning, and that shall be followed by a practice of Atma Ucharan lasting 10 minutes. After these 2 segments of reading from Guru Vachaka Kovai, the work by Muruganar Swamigal, a short meditation on the meaning of the verse, and the practice of Atma Ucharan. After these 2 segments are completed, today there will be summing up remarks by our own Venkatesh Deshpande ji, and that shall be followed by an offering of Sri Ramana Stotram. The chanting will be by Vaibhav ji and Prarthnama, and the floral offerings and the Harati shall be by Manjunath ji from right here. We begin this offering of Satsang to Bhagavan by taking the first verse selected for us, verse number 462. 462, we find it in the segment Investigation into Truth. The other two segments are Meditation on the Truth and Anubhava or Experience of the Truth. In fact, you may find that the Satsang is designed in that way, that we read the verse, meditate on it, and then practice the Nididhyasana. We find verse 462 under the subheading number 76, that is sleep. 462 goes like this: if the illumination, that is awareness of your being, exists so firmly that it remains unshaken until sleep overpowers you, then there will be no need to feel jaded and disheartened, lamenting, "Oh, the forgetfulness of nascent sleep has come and unsettled me." Bhagavan changed Muruganars remains unbroken to remain unshaken. There is a reference from talk 203. Bhagavan, the awareness is at present through antakaranas, the mental faculties. Prajnana, true or perfect knowledge, is always shining even in sleep. If one is continuously aware in Jagrat, the waking state, the awareness will continue in sleep also. There is a reference in talks where specifically Muruganar asks this question: how is one to do self-inquiry in sleep? And Bhagavan replies that if one keeps up the inquiry in the state, here the words additional support is given, but there in the talks Bhagavan would say, if the inquiry is kept up throughout the waking state, then it would continue in deep sleep. And he would give the analogy of, if a king visits your home and he has come and sat in the reception and in the living room partaking of some pleasantries, we wouldn't say that he did not come to the kitchen or he did not come to this part of the home. We will just say the king had visited the home. It is like that, says Bhagavan. There, let us go into the verse. It is a key aspect of sadhana that is being investigated here. If the illumination, that is your awareness of being, so this is the key to self-inquiry, if one may put it like that, the ulla unarvu, the feeling that I am. And Bhagavan uses this so directly that he does not even insist that a person should be a theist, a believer in God, to follow his teachings. If he follows his teachings, eventually he will directly learn that God is God. But to begin with, Bhagavan doesn't even insist. We were discussing just before the satsang that Bhagavan insists only on putting attention on the ego. The rest of the things he has allowed lot of freedom. But this one thing, he is so constant sadhana that is asking of us, that to make it to make it difficult, he doesn't need any other tool because it is so constantly present, the ego, and he's asking us to attend to that, that he doesn't need to put any other condition, and any other condition would be a dilution of self-attention. So we were discussing how he has given freedom, but at the same time, it is a very diligent person alone who can stick to the Atma Ucharan. That's why he says, with diligence, you hold the I, the Ulla Unarvu. So here, the awareness of one's being. What is so special about this Ulla Unarvu is that it doesn't need the validation from the mind or from any other second or third person. It doesn't need even a guru to come and tell, other than your own self, to come and tell you to validate your own existence. Bhagavan would simply ask, did you exist or not in deep sleep? Now, even in deep sleep, where the body, mind and the world do not exist, you exist. So hold that Ulla Unarvu now, which doesn't need validation from a thought. So whenever a thought comes, tell it, you're not needed to validate my own existence. So I will let go of you and hold my Ulla Unarvu. That's what Bhagavan says in Akshara Manamalai also. Nyamaliyil keda nanen urudiyai nadinin uruven Arunachala. Am I worse than a dog which can hold the scent of the master and reach the master? I will also hold my Ulla Unarvu till I reach the Sat Chitta, the existence consciousness, O Arunachala, which is your Ulla Unarvu. See, the Ulla Unarvu of the Jiva and the Ulla Unarvu of Arunachala, the Ishvara, the difference is that in Arunachala's Ulla Unarvu, it is May Ulla Unarvu. It is the ever-existent Ulla Unarvu. It is Sat Chit, which is ever present. Whereas the Jiva's Ulla Unarvu flits between waking, dream and deep sleep. And even in waking, it is occupied so much with the imagined other existences that it forgets it is in Vikshepa. It is so much occupied in the objects that the avarana is not even realized, that one's own existence has been covered up. That veiling itself is not realized. One is so much occupied in the Vikshepa, in the multiplicity of other existences. So the Guru, Bhagavan, makes us investigate that, are you aware that without your Ulla Unarvu, there cannot be anything else? So, if the illumination, that is awareness of your being, exists so firmly that it remains unshaken, the Ulla Unarvu should be held to transcend all otherness in the waking state till it remains unshaken, and Bhagavan is supposed to have changed from unbroken to unshaken. There may be apparent break, but the identity is firm. The identity of the unbroken awareness, the identity of the unshaken awareness is there throughout the waking state, says Bhagavan. If it is there throughout the waking state, and let the deep sleep overpower you. That is, you don't even know it has come about. So that is why Bhagavan says to Kunju Swami, before going to sleep, practice. See, if the next step, the making it easier for the preliminary sadhaka is, till it remains unshaken throughout the waking state, you can practice self-inquiry as soon as you wake up, before you go to sleep, and at particular times, and whenever you remember it, till it becomes unshaken throughout the waking state, and allow deep sleep to overpower you. Then there will be no need to feel jaded. The feeling of jadedness will be will vanish, and we will understand what Adi Shankara means by saying Nidra Samadhi Sthitihi, that the unbroken, the deep sleep without the break for any dream, that itself will be the Nirvikalpa Samadhi Sthitihi. That Nidra Samadhi Sthitihi, that will be one's own experience if the current of one's own existence, the Ulla Unarvu, has studied itself and identified with the Ulla Unarvu of the self, the Ishvara, the Aham Spurana, which is there in all the three states as the Adhara. If the illumination, that is awareness of your own being, exists so firmly that it remains unshaken until sleep overpowers you, then there will be no need to feel jaded and disheartened, lamenting, oh, the forgetfulness of nascent sleep has come and unsettled me. The Nirvikalpa Samadhi Sthiti will be one's own experience rather than feeling a dullness that somehow this deep sleep has interrupted the sadhana. One will understand that the king was present in all the home, his vibration was present all through the home. That will be the experience, says Bhagavan. Bhagavan changed Muruganar's remains unbroken to remains unshaken. The Dhrida, what really happens is that we bring all the three states to the now. All the three states are thought, and when Atma Vicharam is pursued in the waking state, all the three states are brought to the present, and all the three states are transcended in the Spurana. the waking, the dream, and the deep sleep. When we are sitting in the experiencing the sensory experiences, then we understand that the self is to be sought within. Therefore, we stop using the senses and start going inward, which is what we are going to do shortly. And when we go inward, Bhagavan asks us to see the thoughts. That is, we have converted the Sthula into the Sukshma. And in the Sukshma also, Bhagavan says, your Ulla Unarvu is the Adhara for all the other thoughts to exist. So, holding your Ulla Unarvu is the path, is the direct path to get to the real Ulla Unarvu, real Satchit. So, whenever a thought arises, do not pursue it, but inquire for whom is this thought. The answer will come. This thought is for me, I exist. Who am I? Holds on to the awareness of one's own being. This awareness of one's own being to the removal of all other thoughts takes us to the Sat Chit of Arunachala, which itself cannot exist apart from Ulla Purul, says Bhagavan. Ulladala, Ulla Unar, Ullado, the Sat Chit are not two entities. Both are absorbed in the Sat, the self. So, the Swaswarupa and the Ishvara Swarupa are not different and get merged in the self, the Atman, the being, where there is no Spurana, there is only the being. Even this Spurana quietens when you hold it and don't ask anything from it, says Bhagavan to Gambiram Seshayar. Let us sit in practice of Atma Vicharam for 10 minutes. Revitma, you will help us out with the time. Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang by taking up the second verse, verse number 903. 903 we find in the Anubhava segment, experience of the truth, changelessness. The subhead is changelessness, verse number 903. Extremely learned scholars of rare wisdom. There is an exclamation mark, so it's being addressed to the extremely learned scholars of rare wisdom. Having assured yourself that all things appear and disappear in cycles, can you say whether they really occur or whether they are things that are perceived by the senses and which disappear again? What is the source of all these changes? That is the verse. Extremely learned scholars of rare wisdom, having assured yourself that all things appear and disappear in cycles, can you say whether they really occur or whether they are things that are perceived by the senses and which disappear again? What is the source of these changes? There are some notes. Bhagavan, in common with many other gurus, defines reality as that which is permanent, unchanging, and which shines of its own accord. The transitory phenomena that appear and disappear cannot therefore be real, but the unchanging substratum in which they manifest does meet the definition of real. There is a note from Day by Day with Bhagavan, 15th June 1946. Bhagavan, everything we see is changing, always changing. There must be something unchanging as the basis and source of all this. Question: what justification have we for imagining that the source of all this must be unchanging? Bhagavan, it is not mere thinking or imagining that I is unchanging. It is a fact of which everyone is aware. The I exists in sleep, when all the changing things do not exist. It exists in dream and in waking. The I remains changeless in all these states, while other things come and go. Question: but why should these changes, but why should these things, that is the world, appear? Bhagavan, to whom does it appear? You see, and so the world appears. You see, and so the world appears. In Ulladu 40, Bhagavan says, Nam ulagam kandalal, Nanavam shakti ula or mudalai oppal porutalaye. That is, as we see this world with names and forms, with variations, then we have to accept one being having this magical power, not apart from its own self, by which it can manifest as many things. To whom does this appear? You see, and so the world exists. Does it exist independently of the seer? Does it come and tell you, I exist? What proof is there of its existence except that you say, you see or perceive it? So, the drishtanta given in that first verse in Ulladu 40 is that of the picture show, the cinema show. Nama uru sittiramum, parpanum, serpadamum, aroliyum, attanayum, tanam, avan. That the whole names and forms and the seer and the screen on which they are displayed, that is the adhara, and the light that reveals both the screen and the seer and the seen, that light which is the Sat Chitta is also the self. Everything is the self, says Bhagavan there. Now, what are these changing things in names and forms, and what are these changing things, and why do they change in cycles? This transience or changefulness is something that is inquired into by all religious and spiritual thought. Somebody asks Bhagavan about the difference between Visishta Advaita and Dvaita Advaita. Bhagavan says what is called as changefulness in Visishta Advaita is called as Maya in pure Advaita. What is called as transient in Buddhism is called as Maya in Advaita. So transience, changefulness, birth and death, all these things happen in cycles, says the verse. That is, there is this waking, dream, deep sleep. There are larger cycles, the largest of which the Hinduism finds as yugas. And strangely, or not so strangely, there is a video by Carl Sagan in the YouTube where he appreciates that the yugas found by Hinduism is more or less the cycles that science, at least in his time, more or less it is agreeing with the time scale of the universe found by science at his time, says Carl Sagan. There is a video to that effect. He comes down to India, studies the Indian system of thought and the cyclical behavior of changes. All the changes have a cycle. Once again, you go through it, you come back to the same spot, and then if you are not satisfied that these are the changeful things and I alone am the unchanging, the consciousness, if you are still interested in the changing things, once again we have to go one more round. Extremely learned scholars of rare wisdom, having assured yourself that all things appear and disappear in cycles, can you say whether they really occur? So whatever is changing, how can you call it as real? And Bhagavan says, the changing consciousness of the changing world rises and sets. Tondrimarai darkidanai, tondrimarayadu olirum, pundramam akde porul, says Bhagavan in Ulladanarpati again, that for all these changes to be perceived, there must be a consciousness which itself is unchanging, is an Ulla Unarvu. The Ulla Unarvu does not change. That's why Bhagavan says, hold the Ulla Unarvu. Let that not become or be identified with the changing Jiva. Because when occupied with things which are changing, we feel we are also changing. I have gained something. I have become better. Oh, this average age of Indian is only so much. So I can anticipate death in a short while. These thoughts come when the consciousness identifies with the changing substances of body and world. But Bhagavan here says that what is the source of these changes? So the unchanging consciousness, the Ulla Unarvu, is the one unchanging existence which one has to hold, which one has to identify with, where and all the changing events are absorbed in the changeless self. The beauty is, it is not that these two remain as two different things. Whatever is found as changing things, they all get absorbed into the one self. The self alone is the world. The self alone is the Jiva. The self alone is Ishvara, says Bhagavan. The Spurana Jagat Aham Para Spurati Me Trayam, says Ganapati Muni. All the three, the Jagat, Aham and Para, they all shine in me as the Spurana, as the Akanda Atma. Aham Aham Iti Sakshat Atma Rupena Bhati. Hold that Ulla Unarvu, which is unchanging, and understand that all changes are unreal and get absorbed in the real self. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us sit and practice for 10 minutes. Rehma, you can set the time for us. Namo Ramana. I request Venkatesh ji to give us the summary of remarks. Namo Ramana, sir.
Arunachala. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Dhyanamulam Guror Murtihi Pujamulam Guror Padam Mantramulam Gurur Vakyam Mokshamulam Guror Kripaha Mokshamulam Guror Kripaha. Wonderful. Today's verses that were chosen. First verse, the second verse which was chosen was changelessness. So it's a very, very important thing. And I thought I would, bring out some examples in our daily lives and how we, we go into a theater. He gave Nandakumar gave the example of a theater. We go for seeing a movie. And what happens? There is a screen on which a movie is playing. Now, movie is playing. What is moving? Actually the movie is moving. The movie is moving. So whatever the picture, we go on any movie, it is moving. But there's something which is stationary behind it. Imagine if that was also moving. Imagine if the screen was also moving and the movie was also moving. Then what could we see? We won't be able to see anything because everything is moving. So there has to be something stationary to be able to see the moving. That is one very important aspect. The other aspect is look at the way the mind works. Look at the way the mind works. If you see the mind, when the movie stops, when the movie starts, we're all interested in the movie and watching the movie. When the intermission happens, for example, the interval happens, what happens? The unmoving is there. The moving has stopped. But what do we do at that point of time? We don't sit quietly at that point. We get up, go out and have a popcorn or have a Coca-Cola, whatever it is. We don't want, be with that unmoving. The screen is the unmoving. So when we actually then again the movie starts, again the moving starts. What happens? Again we are engaged with it. And when finally, when the end happens, when there's only the unmoving, what happens? We get up and go out of the theater hall. So the important thing is we as human beings, because of our mind, because of our intellect, and because of our senses and ego, we like change. We want change. So we cannot always stay with the changeless. Like for example, another simple example, we go, when we were young, my father used to drive us to various lakes. Madhya Pradesh has a lot of lakes. So we used to go my mother used to pack up some puliyogre and some curd rice, and we used to just go for a picnic. So when you go and sit in the corner of the lake, what do you see? When you go to the lake is perfectly quiet. It's changeless. It is nothing is happening. But as we as children can't see that the lake is not moving. What do? Pick up a stone. And then what do? We try to throw the stone on the surface of the lake. Then what happens? We will count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, mine went 6 times. My sister will throw it and she'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times mine went. And then what happens? We see the ripples on the lake. And then we feel happy and whatever it is. So we cannot just go and sit down and be with the changeless, because we as beings, we want change. Because this is the challenge. As if you see ourselves itself, if you look at our photographs when we were young, we were babies, you always said, yes, this is me. And then what happens? If you look at your body, the way it has grown and grown, your hair, which was perfectly black and long, and suddenly it's become short and white, and the face where which was all know anything. Then you went through school, then you went through college, then you went through a job, and there was all constant change happening. Mind also was constantly changing, and we were witness to that. And today, intellect. Oh, I was leading a worldly life earlier. Then I started leading a religious life. Now I'm trying to lead a spiritual life. Again, from intellect perspective also, there's constant change happening. Now, each one of us was Sakshi. Each one of us was there when we were in the photograph where we see ourselves there in school and college. And today, when we are here sitting in this satsang, we are there. There is no doubt about it. But we do not bother, we do not go to that place because that is not our mentality. Our mentality is always to be with the change. We want to be with the change. Is there something happening? So, say somebody is going for an evening function. Is there something going to happen in that function? Or everybody is going to sit quiet? If everybody is just going to sit quiet, I'm not coming for that function. I want something to be happen. There must be some activity. So what happens is the changeless is constant. That's what that they call it the Brahman. So who himself sees all, whom no one beholds, who illumines the intellect, but whom they cannot illumine, that is Brahman. That I'm reading some things from what Swami Shivananda has written. Beautiful. That unheard hearer, that unseen seer, that unthought thinker, that unknown knower is Brahman. So the point really is we always wonder who is this Brahman? Who's is there something like a Brahman at all or not? So the point really comes to that are we happy in whatever we have now? See, based on we at one level we believe karma is going to play out, prarabdha karma is going to play out. That means the body is going to go through certain ups and downs and whatever we may call it, some excitement, some pleasure, some pain, it's going to go through. But are we happy with whatever we have right now? No, the mind wants something different. It wants something. It is looking for something else. I don't know why. The mind is always looking for something else. So, but if you really see what Swami Shivananda also beautifully writes is that mind always runs after pleasure because it is born of Ananda, Brahman. It is born out of Brahman. Mind always runs after pleasure. You love a mango because it affords you pleasure. Among all things, you love your own self most. You love yourself the most. If you ask each one of us, whom do you love the most is yourself. You love somebody else because you love yourself. That is very, very true for all of us. This love of the self gives the clue to the fact that ananda or bliss must be the nature of the self. So the ananda that we experience whenever we are in the changeless, the ananda that we experience is actually our atman. So all the great ones are saying, be with the changes. Brahman is unborn, undying, changeless, bodiless, immortal, and fearless. He has neither name nor form. He has neither contraction nor expansion, neither beauty nor ugliness. Verily, Brahman is fearless. He who knows Brahman becomes immortal and fearless. And the final thing is, which Bhagavan also says, look within. Within is the fountain of bliss. That is the real life. What is this real I? That is the soul. That soul. That is Atman. That is Brahman. That is pure consciousness. So all the great ones are saying, don't move around with the changing. Things are all happening on the screen, but we are giving it reality, like the way Nandakumar said. We are giving it reality. If you're not giving it reality, nothing happens. You're in a bus stand. If millions of people are going around, no, you don't see anybody. But if your wife is coming, you will see each lady that comes and wonder, oh, is this my wife? Is this my wife? So you will always see that changeful because of your mind. So Bhagavan says, important thing is be with the changeless, be with that Sachidananda Atman. So whenever you are, even in the wakeful, whenever you are abiding in the self, it'll automatically continue in your dream state, it'll automatically continue in your deep sleep state, and that'll be the Adhara. And once you start being with the Adhara, once you get used to being with the Adhara, you will stop being with the change. You'll stop liking the change altogether because you know that is not true. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramana. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana, sir. Thank you very much. Namo Ramana, Vaibhavji and Namo Ramana, Pratnama and Vaibhavji. Can we start the chanting?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Namo Ramana. भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्री रमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्विमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि ॐ महासेन महंसेन जाताय नमः ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः ॐ गुरवे नमः ॐ अखण्डसंविदाकाराय नमः ॐ महौजसे नमः ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः ॐ जगद्हितावताराय नमः ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोत्थिताय नमः ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः ॐ सहायाम्बासहायवते नमः ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः ॐ तीव्राय नमः ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः ॐ तपोमयाय नमः ॐ उदासीनाय नमः ॐ महायोगिने नमः ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः ॐ कुशाग्रदिये नमः ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसम्रम्भाय नमः ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः ॐ सवित्रे नमः ॐ स्थिराय नमः ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः ॐ पुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः ॐ चूर्णिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः ॐ विराजितचलकृतये नमः ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः ॐ पूर्णाय नमः ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः ॐ गम्भीराय नमः ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्य निभाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईड्याय नमः। ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्रीशोणाचलरिद्बोधस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्न संशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ मृच्छान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणाद्बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तःस्थिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शोणाद्रिशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनाम पूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थानोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्यास्यनिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रह सुप्रवाहविवश सादात्म्यभावं गतः हृन्निष्ठस्वगभीर नित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनासेकरात् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नमः इदं लोकोत्तर ज्योतिषे। ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शनसुखमङ्गलमुख सकलजीवहितसम्मुख ब्रह्मसङ्गिये सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानन्दपुष्ट परममहर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡು ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೆ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಘಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ महर्षि नमो महर्षि बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय
Jai.
ನಮೋ ರಮಣ ಅಕ್ಕ, ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮೋ ರಮಣ.